Considering home security? Consider this. For 140 years, ADT has helped stop more crime than any other home security company. The yard sign isn't just a sign, it's a line in the sand. It's no wonder 5 times more people choose ADT to protect their homes. Visit ADT.com to learn more. For license information and terms and conditions, visit ADT.com.
Here we are. We're going live to LaGuardia Airport shortly.
Nice.
As Buster Olney will join us. I'm told he is in the quietest place he could find at LaGuardia Airport.
Where is that?
As he makes his way, isn't he going to L.A.? How do you get to L.A. from LaGuardia? All the nonstop flights are from Kennedy. I'm almost positive. I'll get to the bottom of this.
Not going to lie, I have no idea.
I'm telling you right now. I'm
you
pretty
fly
sure
out
I
to
have
New York
this
way
right.
more than I do.
All right, let's find this. You know what? In fact, I'm so curious. I'll save all my tweets and everything for a minute from now.
Okay.
We are Mike and Mike presented by Progressive Insurance. The World Series begins tomorrow. Tomorrow at this time, we'll have Rob Manfred on the program. But right now, we're pleased to welcome Buster Olney live to Mike and Mike as he gets set to fly out to Los Angeles. He's on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Buster, are you at LaGuardia?
I'm at LaGuardia right now, yeah.
And how are you getting to L.A.?
You know, there are things called connecting flights, and I'm using a connecting flight going through Detroit today to get to LAX.
But why would a man of your enormous stature be connecting when there are these delightful nonstop flights that you could be on? I don't understand this, Buster.
Maybe I'm not quite at the stature that you are, Greeny. That could be the case.
Well, I mean, in fact, I think as a result of this conversation,
I feel we need to go to battle for Buster.
So do I.
Ridiculous you have to connect.
Although I will say this, there's a lot of good things to eat in the Detroit airport.
The Detroit airport is fantastic right now.
Anyway.
See, here's the other factor about that, too, guys. Since I'm Jose Altuve's height, okay, I don't really worry as much about you guys as whether or not you're in first class, connecting, and all that stuff, okay?
Who are you kidding? You tower over him.
All right, Buster is with us here. We'll get to the World Series stuff in a minute, but we have a lot of other stuff to start with as the other teams around the sport sort of clean up some of their business, and we have a couple of managerial, well, actually more than just the two. Let's start with the two where we have a little bit of certainty now. We have the Red Sox finding their man and the Mets finding their man. Take us through those.
Yeah, the Red Sox hire Alex Cora, of course, worked with us as an analyst for years. He's now the bench coach of the Houston Astros. He'll move on to the Red Sox at the end of the World Series. Alex is someone who played in Boston. He's got experience in the Boston market, so that'll work well for him. I think the big question about him is he's never been the star of a team. He's never been the major face of a team. So it'll be interesting to see how he'll handle that high-pressure market. Mickey Callaway is going to be the next manager of the Mets. Look, it's unusual to see pitching coaches name managers, but, during the course of this process, I said to Terry Francona, the Indians manager who's worked with Mickey in recent years and just raves about him, that Mickey has a personality that seems to transcend that difference. I said to Terry, he seems much more of a position player than a lot of pitchers are, and Terry looked at me and said, I know exactly what you're talking about, and I completely agree with you. He's very structured, very organized, and I'm sure that appealed to Sandy Alderson. So he's there, and the two other, sort of the surprising situations that might loom first in Washington, Dusty Baker out. That's a shock around baseball. The ownership there has gone through a lot of managers. They'll be on their 6th and 10 years, and good luck trying to sell that job to the next person because you're basically telling that guy, look, we're not going to pay you very much. You have to win immediately, and there's a job that has incredible pressure. And then we're all waiting to see what happens with Joe Girardi and the Yankees. I told you a few weeks ago, it wouldn't surprise me if these two sides part ways. His contract is up right now. We'll have to see how the negotiation goes.
Whoever replaces Dusty Baker, what a note. It's going to be Bryce Harper's 4th manager in the big leagues, and he turns 25. He turned 25 last week. That is amazing. But
can I ask about that? Why did that happen, Buster? Because the first thing, when I saw that news, the first thing I thought of was the press conference with the mold in the air conditioning, as ridiculous as it sounds, but that whole thing turned into such a little bit of a fiasco. But then Strasburg came out and pitched a great game, so it didn't seem to make any difference. Why did this happen in Washington?
Yeah, and it was a surprise because during the year, Mike Rizzo, the Nationals general manager, said repeatedly that he expected that Dusty would be back. They actually negotiated during the season on an extension. They didn't get it quite across the finish line. But I think this is a classic case of what have you done for me lately? And so even though the Nationals won 192 regular season games the last 2 seasons, 192, the fact that they lost in the playoffs, they had that Strasburg fiasco. I know people in the Nationals organization blame that on Dusty and his mishandling of it. maybe all that changed the perspective of the owners. As I say, one big factor always with the Nationals owners is they do not like to pay their managers. They've had guys walk away because of the fact that they don't like to pay their managers.
So looking at the Yankees, do you think it will be more the Yankees want Joe back, Joe doesn't want to come back, or the Yankees don't really want him back and Joe wants to? And, oh, by the way, let's throw Brian Cashman in there. Isn't his deal up as well as far as whether he's going to be back or not?
Yeah, Golick, Cashman's deal is up. Now, every time that he's had a contract, it's played out like this. He gets to the end of the contract. He has a very strong relationship with the Steinbrenners, with Hal Steinbrenner, and I would expect that he's going to be back. On the Girardi thing, if I were to guess how it's going to play out, I think it's going to come down a lot to negotiation, where if Joe goes to them and says, look, I'll come back, but I want a significant raise over the $4 million that I'm making, at that point, I'm going to be really curious about the Yankees' reaction, because if they feel like internally that, look, we're not going to pay you, $6, $7, $8 million. We're not going to pay you at the top of the marketplace. At that point, I wonder if Joe will make a decision, and it'll sort of be a mutual parting of ways. It definitely felt like that this relationship had started to reach an expiration point earlier in the postseason.
I agree with you, but then the way the Yankees, the players on that team, rallied around him in that Cleveland series after the terrible game that he had on that Friday night, and it was so obvious to me and so genuine how badly the players wanted to pick up their manager. I thought that spoke volumes. And if you look at this incredibly young team that everyone acknowledges is ahead of schedule, if you're not going to pay Joe Girardi that much money, my question would be why? Why would you not be willing to pay him what the elite managers, the top-level managers in the game make? He is one.
Well, I think that's, first off, it depends on the perspective of Hal Steinbrenner, Brian Cashman, on how they assess managers. So many front offices today that are steeped in analytics don't believe that the managers make that much of a difference. That one manager making $4 million is not that much different than a manager making $2 million. And I think that this decision could hinge on that question. How do the Yankees view Joe Girardi? Do they look at him as being one of the one or two or three irreplaceable managers in baseball, and we got to have that guy? Or do the managerial position is one where, hey, whoever drops into this team right now with these young players is going to do pretty well.
Buster Olney live with us from LaGuardia Airport. Be on the lookout for him in the Detroit airport in about 2.5 hours. In the meantime, let's talk about Justin Verlander, who spent the beginning of this year and the entire beginning of his career in Detroit and now finds himself the star of the Houston Astros and the MVP of the ALCS on his way to the World Series. And you sent us a note saying you had a great story about Verlander.
Yeah, I talked to him the other day. This was during the games in Yankee Stadium because, of course, in Game 2, he was so phenomenal. His fastball up to 98 miles per hour. He's 7 scoreless innings in Game 6 later to help keep the Astros alive and on their way to the World Series. And I asked him that when he struggled in 2014 and his velocity was down, was he worried? And he looked at me and said, "Are you kidding?" And he told me a story about a game that he pitched in Pittsburgh on August 11th of that year. And during that season, his fastball velocity was down as low as 86 miles per hour. He'd had some injuries. And in that game in Pittsburgh, he lasted 1 inning, 40 pitches. Brad Ausmus, the manager, took him out of the game. The two of them argued. And Verlander said he went behind the dugouts. And he said, I just lost it. He started bawling because his thought was, you know what, my career as a power pitcher is over. And that's how deep into his slump that he was and how unsure he was at that time. During the off season, he looked around and talked to people about restructuring his body and how to use stretching. And the next spring, when he was on the mound for the first exhibition game, he threw a pitch that he said felt really good coming out of my hand. And as he told me this story, he said, look, I'm getting goosebumps right now thinking about that moment. When he turned around and looked at the scoreboard, it said 95 miles per hour. He said, that's when I knew I was going to be able to come back.
Wow.
That's a great story.
It is a great story, and now he's got a great shot with his new team, the Astros. So let's go through it. Start of the World Series tomorrow. Let's go to the 3 areas. Break them down for us. Let's start with starting pitching.
Well, the one thing to keep in mind in this series, the Dodgers, rightly so, really took advantage of being in their position as number 1 seed because when they faced the Diamondbacks pitching was all jumbled from the wild card game. Robbie Ray had to be used in relief. And the Dodgers blew through the Diamondbacks. Then they faced the Cubs, and the Cubs pitching was in complete shambles because they had to scramble to get through the Nationals in 5 games. That's not going to be the case in this series. When I talked to A.J. Hinch before Game 7 of the series between the Astros and the Yankees, he said, look, our dream scenario is that we get through tonight without using Dallas Keuchel, without using Justin Verlander, and that's exactly how it played out. So the Astros have Keuchel lined up in Game 1, Verlander lined up in Game 2. Charlie Morton, of course, threw very well the other night for the Astros in Game 7. So I think it's kind of a pick-em in terms of starting pitching between the Dodgers and the Astros.
All right, let's go to bullpen.
Big advantage for the Dodgers. And, look, Kenley Jansen has been unbelievable. On the other hand, during the course of the American League Championship Series, a lot of questions pop up about the Astros bullpen. I do wonder if Lance McCullers' dominance out of the bullpen in Game 7 will give them the inspiration to continue to use him into that role. Guys, the other night in Game 7, he finished the game with 24 straight curveballs. He's got the best curveball in baseball, and he just kept going at the Yankee hitters with that pitch. Incredibly effective. You wonder if you'll see A.J. Hinch use McCullers in the same way that Francona used Andrew Miller last year, as being the guy who just gets you through the toughest part of the lineup and the toughest part of the game.
And then hitting?
That, too, I think is a pick-em. Now, I am going to be curious about the Astros hitters, who clearly in those games in New York, they dealt with a lot of anxiety. George Springer, Alex Bregman, Josh Reddick, they all expanded the strike zone so much. They got better in those last 2 games in Houston, but that's something they're going to have to deal with at the outset of this series. The Dodgers, on the other hand, boy, their lineup is so deep, and they have so many guys who throw out great at-bats. I will say this. Before Game 6, I was talking with Jose Altuve, and he mentioned to me, he looked at me and said, look, whoever wins this series is going to have an advantage over the Dodgers. And I said, well, what do you mean? And he said, the Yankees get through us, and then they'll have known that they came back against Cleveland. They came back against us. They're going to ride that momentum. And then he smiled. He said, we win today and tomorrow, then we're going to have known that we came back from the edge to beat the Yankees. We'll have been playing. We'll be on a roll. And the one thing to say about the Dodgers, they've had a great October. They have not really been tested yet. And on the other hand, the Astros will be riding their momentum going into the World Series.
All right, Buster, who wins?
I got the Astros in 7. I know the Dodgers are going to be heavily favored, but just having seen them and having seen the advantage they have with their crowd, seeing how well Verlander and Keuchel are throwing, I picked them. I think Clayton Kershaw is going to be absolutely the pivotal figure in this series. Can he go out and throw 2 dominant games and beat Keuchel in Games 1 and 5?
We shall find out. And again, Buster Olney will be a huge part of ESPN Radio's coverage of the World Series, which begins tomorrow night. All right, Buster, there's a Mediterranean place in that Detroit airport that I like at the hummus plate. You will thank me, I promise.
I'll be looking for it in my 36-minute layover.
Oh,
unlike
wow.
you, when you have first class and nonstop flights, I'm going to have to be running from gate to gate.
Boy, I hope you're not landing in A. You have to go to C or B or the other way around. You're going to have to hump it, my friend.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.
Good luck, Buster. Thank you very much. That's Robert Standori Olney III, brought to us by Indeed.com. Post your next job opening on the world's #1 job site.
It's a great breakdown. Pitching, he's got pick'em. Hitting, a pick'em. Bullpen, big advantage to the Dodgers, but he's got the Astros in 7, which would mean they're winning on the road, right? So, I mean, that would be something. I saw that last year a little bit, didn't
Yeah, we saw it last year with the Cubs. And look, we had a terrific World Series last year.
Yep.
I think there's a chance for this to be a fabulous World Series as well. You know what someone said to me yesterday? The storyline of Houston doing it for the city. Remember, we had A.J. Hinch on when the Astros were playing their home games on the road and everything right after the horrible flooding and everything else. But as far as the national broadcast have been concerned, it really hasn't been as much of a storyline as you might have thought it would be.
Right.
But I think it becomes one now. Is can they bring a championship to the city? You know, after all that city has gone through, and you've got the Dodgers, who are obviously a heritage franchise, and the Astros, who a lot of people are still getting used to the fact that they're in the American League. So hopefully, it sets up to be a great World Series. We look forward to it, and you'll hear every pitch of it right here on ESPN Radio. Mike and Mike, presented by Progressive Insurance. Our guests on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Back to the football here, Mike, and you mentioned Spencer Drango will be the answer to a trivia question someday, sort of the opposite of Wally Pipp, or whoever. I don't remember who played third base the night that Cal Ripken sat in that Sunday night game against the Yankees anymore.
That's right.
But Spencer Drango was the guy who came in and played left tackle after 10,000 plus snaps for Joe Thomas for the Cleveland Browns. And it occurs to me, Spencer Drango sounds like the villain in a Liam Neeson movie.
It's a great name.
That's a great name.
Great name.
If I should ever be in like a thriller, write a thriller, I think that the villain is going to be named Spencer Drango.
Drango. I mean, Drango's close to Drago, of course, from Rocky IV.
Spencer Drango.
Spencer Drango is a very cool name.
By the way, Ryan Miner was the third baseman for the Orioles that night that Cal Ripken finally decided to sit down. All right, and speaking of the Browns, there are 3 unimaginably bad teams in the NFL right now. Just as you watch the games, it's hard to believe in a sport where everything is supposed to play out as equally as it does that things were this easy to see coming. But the Browns are winless, the 49ers are winless, and the Colts have only beaten those 2 teams.
Right.
And yesterday the Colts got shellacked at home by Jacksonville without Leonard Fournette. So there are some, we could talk a lot about the good teams in the NFL. There's some terrible football to watch every Sunday.
Yeah, there is. And you thought your Jets were going to be one of those teams, and
they're not terrible.
The fight for the quarterback is going to get interesting because all of a sudden the quarterback everybody wants to fight for, it was Darnold. Who knows if he'll even come out? He is struggling.
So you saw him in person Saturday night. What did you take away?
And I saw a lot of his play this year. There are times he throws the ball and you're like, wow, okay. Dude can throw it. Dude can wing it. Dude can put it on the money where he needs to. But he just makes some bad reads every now and then that you just kind of scratch your head about, and some bad throws. So I mean, if it's one of those where, and we've seen it time and time again, because, these top quarterbacks, it's basically a 50-50 shot going in the first round, that if you like a guy enough, you'll talk yourself into it and say, the things I like about him, I can expand on him to cover up the things I don't like or that we don't see well with this guy. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know, but even with Rosen, who I like the way he throws, Allen, the kid from Wyoming, I do like the way they throw. Rudolph, the way he throws. Boy, they had a tough game as well. That at Texas really
and low scoring.
Absolutely right. Baker Mayfield, you like the way these guys throw and lead, and Mayfield running all over the place.
But Mayfield is not a guy who's going to be in that conversation.
Right. So you look at the guys, the throwers, and you know what? It hasn't been like, oh my gosh, boy, you get any one of those 3, it's going to be fantastic. There's questions where you're kind of going, okay. There's a number of players, if you include Mason Rudolph in the 3, that make it a foursome there, that just say, boy, there could be some depth there. But there's definitely been a lot we've seen on video and in person that I've seen where you kind of question a little bit what you're seeing.
Okay, so then just for fun, let's go through that exercise briefly here. And we're not even halfway through this season yet, so we don't know with certainty who's going to wind up down at the bottom of the standings, but we have a reasonable idea. We have a reasonable idea that the Browns and the 49ers are going to be right near the top of the draft, right? It seems inconceivable with both of them sitting at 0-7 right now that they won't be somewhere near the top of the draft. The Giants are unbelievably 1-6. So they also figure at this point to be somewhere near the top of the draft. And the Colts, who are 2-5, and again, their 2 wins are against the winless. They haven't beaten anyone who has beaten anybody else this season. So if those 4 teams, if they all wind up picking right near the top, where are the quarterbacks going? Are the Colts trading out? Are they trading out of that spot?
Oh, yeah, they're not picking a quarterback.
Okay, so
there's
they're
no way.
Trade out of that spot?
They'll try desperately to trade out, yes.
Well, I don't think they'll have any trouble trading out, right? I mean, unless Darnold doesn't come, if Darnold stays in college.
And he's already said he would, before the year he's staying, but don't buy anything until after the season.
Yeah, so are the Browns going to draft a quarterback this time? This is a team that has now passed on Carson Wentz and Deshaun Watson.
If you look at them right now, the way they're going, you would think they're absolutely going to draft a quarterback. They've used all 3 already. At some point, I'll say again, because Cody Kessler, they're all of a sudden not going to say Cody Kessler is the future of this team or Kevin Hogan is the future of this team. It's on Deshaun Kaiser. So at some point, Kaiser will go back in the lineup. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And can he show enough to where they say, yes, this is what we're going to ride going forward, or we're going to draft one early, and if you draft one early, put him in there, and let's see where we go.
How about the Giants?
That's the $1 million question. 1-6 right now. Certainly, Eli has talked about playing, long, more of a time than you would think, just like Brady has. But where are they going right now? I mean, all their receivers, it's so tough to judge on this year. All their receivers are gone. Evan Ingram is completely taking advantage of the situation. He's become the main go-to guy.
But they weren't winning when those guys weren't hurt.
Nope, they were not. So you wonder, is it time
and they weren't scoring points when those guys weren't hurt. They weren't scoring points last year when they were winning games.
Is it time to make that move? I think maybe at the very least they draft one, but keep Eli, and kind of see where it goes, and knowing you could sit a guy for a year or two, possibly. But I think the Giants have to think long and hard about that. Quite honestly, I think they'll be thinking long and hard about their head coach as well.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So
there are a lot of changes that you can see coming on the horizon in the NFL. We'll see how much of it plays out over the regular season before the season even ends with regards to some of these, and the rest will take care of it.
Here's what I want to quickly say about the quarterback position and what's going on is look at the guys that are being successful early on. Now, Goff, it took him a bit. He was, only played a little bit last year, but he's really improved, right? Carson Wentz, right?
Yeah.
Playing well.
Wentz was good quickly, and now he's great.
And Deshaun Watson, who's coming out playing pretty well, even though he threw 17 interceptions as his last year at Clemson. What do they all do in college? They all played for a while. Okay?
Yeah.
Now, Mitch Trubisky, we don't know yet, but he only started 13 games. Remember, Sam Darnold came onto the scene, and all of a sudden USC was this unbelievable locomotive last year, so now he gets a job, and there's struggle. There's a bit of a struggle going on. So you look at guys who have played for a while and have some experience of how they can pick up the NFL from experience in college. Does it matter or not? I think that comes into play. But again, you don't draft for the rookie year or the second year. You draft for 10. But boy, Wentz is certainly panning out. Goff, if Goff turns out to keep doing what he's doing, are you just fine that the rookie year you're going, oh my God, what the hell did we draft?
Of course.
Of course you are.
Yeah.
So
he started forever. He started games as a freshman at Cal. So look, Bill Parcells always said you don't draft a quarterback who didn't play 30 games in college. And 30
is exactly right. And then you wait on a guy from in all honesty, the Big 12. We don't know what Mahomes is going to give you, and Mason Rudolph is going to be that big-armed guy, even though they were kept down some this weekend of, man, what do I do with this guy that can throw the ball over the place? But Big 12 quarterbacks rarely have success in the NFL. Hey, everyone, Mike Golick here. Support for the Mike and Mike podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Chances are you're confident when it comes to your work, your hobbies, your life. Rocket Mortgage gives you that same level of confidence when it comes to buying a home or refinancing your existing home loan. Rocket Mortgage is simple, allowing you to fully understand all the details and be confident you're getting the right mortgage for you. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/Mikes. Equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states, NMLS, consumeraccess.org number 3030.
Home isn't just a place, it's a feeling. Whether you're at home, your business, or online, ADT helps keep you safe. With security systems, home automation, alarms, and surveillance, so you can feel at home, wherever you are. Go to ADT.com to get that feeling. ADT, home, safe home.
Jeff Saturday is here. Nothing better than talking football on a Monday with Jeff Saturday. And a bunch of Jet fans are texting me, not texting me is the word I'm looking for, tweeting me. All
teasing
kinds
you
of
was right.
Different.
Sure,
well, everyone else is teasing me, and the actual fans of the team are tweeting me different gifs of people crying and all that kind of stuff. And I have to admit, there was a moment yesterday I apologized to my son. We watched the end of that game, and he's sitting there, and I'm looking at the look on his face, and it's like looking into a 35-year-old mirror. Yep. Because I'm 35 years older than he is.
You did it to him.
And I did. I said to him, Stevie, I'm sorry. This has been happening my entire life, and it has done me no good whatsoever.
You could have parented that out of him at an early age. You could have, and you chose not to.
Misery loves company.
There you go.
In the Greeny household, bring them all in, devastate them early, get them used to it.
But, I mean, that was brutal. That was just brutal.
Painful. I mean, listen. I mean, what do you expect at this point? That's my only question for you. Is they're going to get you extremely excited, and then womp. Just let the air out.
Well, the season began with I want them to go 0-16.
Yeah, right.
And they win 3 straight games, and they're playing New England toe to toe. And I'm thinking, I'm embarrassed to admit, I said to my son this week, they could compete for a wild card this year. Let's get into this. And they're winning 28-14 in the fourth quarter yesterday.
Down a QB.
And then Matt Moore happened. Well, let me say this.
Yeah.
That sometimes a loss is actually a win. How in the world was Jay Cutler the quarterback of that team all year long as it was? He's been terrible. Their offense has been terrible. They're winning despite it. And they put Moore in there yesterday, and they looked like an entirely different team.
There's no doubt. We were talking about it last night. and I got all kind of tweet hate because I was talking about the difference between Cutler and Matt Moore. Listen, Matt Moore took him to the playoffs last year.
Right.
This guy is fully capable of handling this team. That wasn't what Gase wanted. He thought bringing Cutler in was going to bring a different spark or something different to this team. But to your point, he comes in, he knows how to execute this offense. He's been with Gase. He understands what he wants from him. And the Miami Dolphin formula, think about the Falcons win and what this one's going to look like. Jay Ajayi, run the rock, play good defense. Don't ask the quarterback to win the game. But and it's not like I don't want this to sound like a management issue, because I don't like when the people talk about game management, right? Like, be realistic with what your players can do. You know you're going to go to Landry. Everybody knows you're going to go to Landry. That's where you're going to be. Let him make some big plays, but allow your offense to kind of come to you, and that's what he does. They end up coming back and getting the win. That's the formula for how this team should win, and Cutler wasn't really playing into that quite yet. They were trying to build him in. Again, bringing him off the street, it takes time.
Yeah, there were those that thought, just let Matt Moore have the job.
Right.
Let him be the guy, but when your head coach is not one of those guys, it usually doesn't work out that way. Now Moore will get the chance to show that he should stay in there, given the fact that this team, is sitting at a very healthy
right in there.
4-2 with
That's
everybody
right.
else. So along those lines,
Not everybody else.
well, no, not everybody else.
And they almost beat the Patriots with a bad call that you were ready to call your attorney about. Just trying to solve the wound
I
right
still
now.
have litigation pending on that call, and now I'm actually considering filing suit against Josh McCown for the interception that he threw.
What was
at
that
the end of the
thought?
game yesterday? That's the worst pass in the history of the sport, right? I mean, I don't mean to overstate it. I know that sometimes people will suggest that I overreact to things, and look, he played a very good game yesterday.
He did. That's the worst. And listen, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to say it was the worst, but it's got to be one, because I don't see when he throws it. I'm like, what? And as soon as you throw it,
Jeff,
that hurt.
If an 8-year-old quarterback threw that, you'd bench him. That's a 38-year-old quarterback throwing
coaches
that.
high school.
Hey, listen, he go after the family. He's already said what he does to his baseball, U9 team. He's going after parents.
Jeff, I apologize, you and everybody out there, that we started off this football conversation.
You may go on now with other matters.
Let's more real about what you're seeing right now from the Saints or from the Falcons.
Oh, listen, I will say this about the Saints. The Saints, to me, have found a nice formula for what is going to work. You think about Drew Brees started out throwing 2 picks. It's not looking good. Everybody's kind of shaking. But what's happened since they sent Adrian to Arizona Cardinals? Right. Now Ingram and Kamara, both guys are playing physical style football. They're hitting the holes. They're running the ball extremely well, which is helping Breeze and this offense. But being able to stick to that, now their defense is actually looking like something that can hold and withstand. Because, again, you're not going 3 and out. Everything we can talk about, as good as Breeze is and their passing attack has been, when you struggle in the passing game, you leave your defense out on the field a ton of time. When you can run the ball, sustain drives, and that's what they're doing, and you're seeing how Ingram is running now. He is being physical. Kamara the same way. I'm excited about the Saints. Disappointed in the Falcons, but I'm buying more of the Saints right now. They're getting into some momentum, and it's looking good.
Saints ran the ball 36 times
Preach
for 161 yards. They controlled the ball for almost 37 minutes. Breeze threw it 38 times. So they ran it 36. Breeze threw it 38. Man, if they can do that. And that's what we thought. For those that thought the Peterson move would be good, maybe that running game will pick up and help out Breeze while Peterson's gone. And I agree with you. What Kamara and Ingram are doing off of that and helping that pass defense is, and again, with the time of possession, then helping the defense.
And you think it helps your offensive line. We talk about this all the time with complementary football, what this really is. Run game doesn't have to get 5 yards a clip if you have Drew Brees. If you get 2 and 3, if you're 3rd and 5, that's pretty manageable as opposed to a 3rd and 8. I know it doesn't sound like a ton to people.
But
it's a huge difference in your play calling. You get to that 3rd and 5, 3rd and 4 look, it looks pretty good. I mean, and it's okay to be that. It doesn't always have to be a 5-yard carry and just mashing. Just keeping the defense honest helps a ton.
Mike and Mike, Jeff Saturday is in our studio here with the Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless, best phones, best networks, no contracts. Just looking around the league, and we live in a time now in football, and I think the offseason lack of work and things like that, or diminished work, makes it harder to figure teams out early in the season. So now maybe we're starting to figure out who really is what they are. what are the Patriots? Because you see them last night, and you just talked about Atlanta and what they aren't. Well, what are the Patriots? The narrative was, well, Brady can't keep this thing afloat by himself. He's 40 years old. The defense is miscommunication. They look terrible. They're one-dimensional on offense. All of a sudden last night, they run the ball 36 times. Brady is leading the league in passing yards at the age of 40, and their defense all of a sudden looks like they're communicating again. So what are the Patriots?
Yeah, listen, we talked about their defense a ton early in the season, but everybody that I've spoken to all said the same thing. Give it time. Matt Patricia's going to get this thing right with Gilmore in the back. I mean, you got a lot of really talented guys. Malcolm Butler back there, who's had an up and down kind of a roller coaster early in the year, but you knew ultimately they were going to sew that thing up on the backside. What that does is it allows your defense, the high tower on the edge. They're starting to set the edge better now. As we talked about early in the year, they were letting teams get to the outside. But you watch Tom Brady. I'm just going to be – Tom Brady threw some passes last night that looked like he was 25 years old. He threw some darts and had some spin on the ball that looked abnormal for a 40-plus-year-old man. I'm just going to tell you. And the placement of the ball, low and down where defenders can't just blast your receivers. It's not just even about the catch. It's about he's putting it where the receiver's either going to catch it, it's incomplete, but the receiver's not going to get decapitated, by a safety coming over the top, which we know the Falcons want to do. They have heavy hitters in the background. So as you're talking about what he did and the way he carried it, and listen, the quarterbacks get – listen, we have to look back at this thing because quarterbacks get a touchdown pass for these little pitches.
Yeah.
Forward,
Yeah.
This little pitch. Yeah. And you know what I mean? I'm like, that's a little bit dirty. That O-line's working awfully hard to get that as a passing touchdown as opposed to a rushing touchdown. And again, all of them, these little shovel passes, little flicks forward, that whole thing, it hurts me a little bit. We need to review that because for me, that's run blocking at its best. And you see, the little plays at quarterbacks. Gronk did a great job getting out there, but give Tom credit.
Bitter O-lineman.
I mean, you know what I mean? Like, I'm watching every team in the league copy this thing. Everything's a little shovel passes and all this. Oh, quarterback's got 3 touchdowns. Come on, man.
You know what's even worse is when you're the center and I'm the D tackle and the quarterback falls down and I touch him and get the sack. And it's your fault.
Absolutely. Yeah. I've given one up. I'm going to put that in my chart.
It's awesome.
Whoever races to touch him first as he's in the fetal position and no one's touched him, and that's my sack.
So what's the problem with that?
The one thing I will say is if the guy who touches him down touches him in the helmet, they're going to throw a 15.
That's true.
Oh, my word. That is a fact.
Especially if Walt Coleman's crew is doing the game, by the way. I don't know if they get paid by the flag, but it is the number of penalties that they called yesterday was so ridiculous that don't get me started again on that. Mike, I got to move off of this. Again, for the rest of the country just joining us, the league's request for a speedier hearing on the Zeke Elliott injunction has been turned down, so it won't be heard till October 30th. So we know he'll be eligible next week, and then next week they'll figure out about the following week. And the one thing I'd ask is, with everything else going on around the league right now, with the kneeling and everything else, why are they in such a rush with this? He will get suspended eventually. This thing will eventually get heard in court, and they'll eventually win. He's not about to retire. So if it lasts until next season, then it lasts until next season. What difference does it actually make?
I think from the league perspective, they have been beaten so often in the courts recently, especially as they're trying to make sure they're keeping their foot on the gas pedal. Whatever we can do, let's try to hurry it. Let's try to get this thing. So whatever other appeals, motions, whatever we can do, we can get them all done so that we can try to get them suspended in a year, as opposed to what we know happened with Deflategate, right? The whole next year it happens. I think that's their mentality.
Yeah,
I agree. To get there.
I think this is just how it works in the courts. If something goes against you, you immediately file the next thing you're allowed to file, and you try and get it as soon as you can. But I'm with you. That'll take care of itself. Well, we'll see where it goes. On the field, when do we start? Is it now that we say the Rams are for real?
Yes.
We have a bye this week. They're atop the division. Then now they have 2 losses. They lost to Washington and to Seattle in L.A. So that was a bad loss there. Yeah. But number 3 offense, number 20 defense, but they are 4th in sacks with 23 sacks. They look really good right now. Can we legitimately say this team can win this division?
Oh yeah, I think as you look at them, what McVay has done with Goff has been extraordinary. I will say in 1 year, or not even 1 year, really, and just this small sample size. I think the way Goff is playing. If you watched him yesterday, and I don't just mean touchdowns. Right? I'm talking about the natural progression of a quarterback, being able to take his eyes off of his number one and throw the check downs out of the backfield, to throw it underneath, to take what's given there. I know we were talking as we were watching the game, there was a wheel route that he could have thrown. Instead, he throws it at 2nd and 3. Instead, he throws it over the middle, gets the first down. I'm like, man, the wheel's wide open.
Right.
But you can tell he's programmed. Get the first down, sustain the drive.
Right.
Those are the things that make quarterbacks really exceptional as they progress in their careers. Now you got Gurley and the way they're rushing the ball. That thing is complementing the way he is. And to your point, Wade Phillips is a fantastic defensive coordinator. Even though they're ranked 20th, like you said, on the sacks, they'll continue to get better. And let's not forget Aaron Donald with the holdout and him not being there. As he gets back more into the rhythm of everything, this defense playing with a lead, when you can get sacks, once you get that lead, it is a nightmare for offensive linemen because you are behind the 8 ball. You can't get out of your own way when people can come and effectively get after your QB because they jump on the lead. That was the story of my career in Indy. Play with a lead, let Robert Mathis, Dwight Freeney come off the edge. The Rams have that same mentality. Let's jump on that lead and make it happen. It is a thing that's been interesting for me to watch, and it's progressively getting better each week.
We're Mike and Mike. All your Twitter reaction comes through the 1-800-Flowers.com Twitter feed. Nothing makes up for a football obsession like bouquets from 1-800-Flowers.com. When you order a dozen red or assorted roses for only $29.99, you get another dozen plus a vase absolutely free. So go to 1-800-Flowers.com/ESPN. There's 2 tweets here I want to read to you guys. Josh Lee tweets at us, Eli isn't the problem. The Giants should have drafted Tunsil and addressed the O-line. The head coach and the O-line are garbage. That's Josh Lee's perspective, not ours.
Listen, I just highlighted the O-line last week. They actually played pretty well.
Right.
I thought, especially some of the trap plays and the running plays and protected a little bit better. I think their O-line is a struggle, without question. With Darkwa, maybe they're getting the running game going a little more. I don't know how consistent that's going to get. Eli Manning isn't the problem. He's not playing well,
right,
and he's getting up there in age. So you just wonder when they're going to revamp. They spent a lot of money on the defense. It certainly seemed to be working at times because that defense looks really good at times, no doubt about it. But you just wonder where they are in the process of building back to a championship if Eli's still going to be that guy.
Yeah, listen, the defense is exceptional. I think they had 9 plays yesterday on the goal line where they stopped Seattle, held strong. I mean, they're playing good enough to win, like you said. But the offense as a whole is so limited now. No receivers to throw to. I mean, even when they win, they only threw it to receivers twice.
Yep. Ingram, the tight ends, get most of the work there.
That's not going to sustain for wins. It's just not going to happen. Whether you blame it on Eli or whoever else, the O-line needed to be addressed. It wasn't. They're just not good enough.
I wanted to read this one quickly, too. Mm-hmm. Jim, talking about the Browns, tweets, Deshaun Kaiser needed to be on a team with a veteran quarterback so he could watch and learn. Forgetting even if you were going to put him out there to play, but the backups there are Kessler and Hogan, who have also basically, for all intents and purposes, no experience. So the idea that they didn't keep some 35-year-old there to sort of mentor him, do you think that was a mistake?
Absolutely. And I think it's a mistake to keep pulling them. I mean, Hugh Jackson's got to make a decision to stick with. I'm just telling you right now, no one on this football team, this is a team that you're trying to develop, is getting better when you keep benching and flipping and benching. No one gets better because no one finds timing. No one finds that rhythm of a football team. Hugh's got to say, hey, this is my guy. Win, lose, or draw. Let's paint Manning through 26 interceptions his rookie year, too. If he's your guy, you better ride with him.
It's really well done. Jeff Saturday every Monday with us here. Thank you. You'll see him all over TV all day long. Booger's on the way. James Franklin the next hour, too. Stay there. Mike and Mike.
Hey, girl, have you done something new with your scales? Using new moisturizer? Nice. It really brings out the hazel in your eyes. Oh, hold on. Are you using whitening strips, too? Your fangs look good, girl. Really good.
A really charming snake charmer? Surprising. What's not surprising? How much you could save by switching to Geico.
Wait, what? Have you been doing Pilates, too?
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.